Hello, my name is Anabelle Parada-Poignand, and my environmental science project will be answering the question of what are the impacts on our environment by food that is produced organically versus food that is produced conventionally. Let's start by looking at the actual definitions for the terms organic and non-organic. Organic foods and products are those that are produced without the use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, or other artificial agents. By contrast, non-organic production uses synthetic chemicals in order to boost the growth of the crop if it's food or boost the product in some way. The biggest benefit to non-organic food is that it has an overall lower cost because it is cheaper to produce and therefore cheaper to sell. Aside from having a low cost, the chemicals used on non-organic foods have a couple of other benefits as well, such as making the foods resistant towards certain bacteria and molds, which then reduces the risk of foodborne illnesses, and it also gives the foods a bit of a longer shelf life, making them last longer. With this all being said, these are some of the only benefits that can be found for non-organic foods. This is because the chemicals used in their production processes tend to do more harm than good. The synthetic chemicals, fertilizers, and pesticides that are used in non-organic farming are sprayed directly onto the crop that humans then go on to consume, and it also seeps into the ground beneath it, causing things like soil erosion and pollution of groundwater. These chemicals that are seeping into the environment are also extremely harmful and disruptive to the ecosystems that live on and underneath the soil. This relates to Chapter 8 of our e-text, which discusses the vast amount of harm that can be caused by these chemicals on environmental health of ecosystems and humans. Eventually, the presence of all of these chemicals on the land can lead the farmland to be less fertile or even become completely infertile. The chemicals that these non-organic farms are spraying also go directly into our air, which adds to air pollution and the pollution of our atmosphere. Another thing is that non-organic farms feed their animals with growth hormone and antibiotics, and then they turn those animals into the meat that humans go on to consume, and in turn consume all of those hormones and antibiotics along with it. I will now get into discussing the benefits of organic foods and how buying organic can help us avoid some of these environmental issues. Organic foods are free of harmful pesticides, antibiotics, GMOs, chemicals, and any other additives that are harmful to the environment, the wildlife, and humans. This completely eliminates the concern of toxicity from agro-industrial chemicals, which cause diseases in people and pollution to air, water, and soil, as previously discussed. Some studies even show that the nutritional value for organic foods is higher than in non-organic foods. Meats that are organic are generally much safer to consume because they don't have any of the added hormones or antibiotics, and as an added plus, the animals in organic farms are generally treated much better than in non-organic farms. Aside from all of these benefits of organic foods, there are also a few cons as well. The main con is that organic foods are at a higher cost than non-organic foods simply because it costs more to produce them. Another con is that because the food is not sprayed against these bacteria, they may be more prone to bacteria such as E. coli and Salmonella, leading to foodborne illnesses. It is also typical that organic foods may not have as long of a shelf life as non-organic foods because they are not sprayed with preservatives to last longer. I previously mentioned that organic foods are free of something called GMOs, which stand for genetically modified organisms. This means that organic foods are considered non-GMO or non-genetically modified, which adds some other cons to organic foods because GMOs do have some associated benefits with them. As a connection to our text, the e-text Chapter 9 discusses many benefits and concerns about GMOs, and I will get into discussing a few of those things now as they relate to organic food. One benefit associated with GMOs is that they can be enriched with added nutrients and they can also last longer, which is not something that we can say for organic foods. Another benefit with GMOs is that they can be cheaper and more manageable to produce because they can be genetically modified against diseases, weeds, herbicides, and pests, which are things that would otherwise need to be closely monitored for. This leads me to another benefit of GMOs, which is that there can be improved pest control because goods can be genetically modified against pests, which may then decrease the use of synthetic pesticides that would have previously been used. This improved pest control is definitely beneficial for the environment because pesticides can be very toxic and harmful, so using them less is definitely a good thing. Because organic food is non-GMO, all of these benefits associated with GMOs can be considered a con of organically produced food. However, with all of this being said, there are also a lot of concerns about GMOs which go on to support the argument that organically produced food is typically overall better for the environment. One concern is that if you breed a GMO with a non-GMO, the non-GMO may be altered and therefore its biodiversity would be reduced and the organism could even become extinct. Another concern is that all foods must be properly labeled on whether or not they are GMO or non-GMO, and this is in order to protect the right of a consumer's right to choose what kind of foods they are buying. Here are some of my own photos from a grocery trip where I found a bunch of labels that showed whether or not they were genetically modified or non-GMO. The last concern for GMOs that I will discuss is that GMO seeds can accidentally be planted or accidentally land on an area where there is crop that is not supposed to be a genetically modified crop. This makes it hard for farmers to definitively say if their crop is completely free of GMOs because they may accidentally have landed there, and there have been some incidences where that has been found to happen. Agriculture can also be affected by this if certain weeds obtain the modified genes and then become more competitive as a result. There is also a certain genetically modified corn crop that produces a windborne pollen that ends up killing caterpillars and monarch butterflies, which could lead to endangerment of that species, and by the same means, this poses a similar risk on human health if viruses are to become resistant or form new strains as a result of GMOs. The benefits of GMO relate to organic foods because organic foods are non-genetically modified, which means that any benefits that come along with GMOs do not pertain to organic foods. However, because of all the serious concerns that come along with GMOs as well, this can solidify the argument that organic foods are still overall better for the environment. In summary, genetically modified foods can cause a lot of harm toward human health as well as wildlife health and the health of land in which the crops are grown. This is comparable to the harm that is caused by non-organic farming with all the chemical sprays that they use on the crops that then go directly into the human body when consumed or directly into the environment when the crop is grown. Ultimately, it is fully the buyer's choice on whether they want to buy organic products or non-organic products, and it is fully to do with their preferences. Hopefully, information regarding the pros and cons of organic foods can help a buyer make an educated decision on how they would like to purchase, and hopefully they will buy organic since it is that much better for the environment, specifically on wildlife, human health, water, soil, and the air.